Well, first of all, we need to understand where the craving comes from. Um, most of our habits, food habits, and our lifestyle are of addictive nature. So most of the cravings come from the body being addicted to certain substances. But we have to go to the microbiology, because all of these cravings arise from our imbalanced microflora, and the way this microflora affects our brain or sends the impulses to our brain. The science is trying to figure out the links. So far, they have no actual, like a complete and sort of coherent understanding about this phenomenon. But everybody knows, for instance, sugar craving is always there. And let's say you quit sugar, you quit candy, but you might start craving for white bread because of the uh, yeast overgrow in your intestines. So the yeast requires foods or some kind of substances that can turn into the sugar, into the food for the yeast, or that could be directly related to any sugar, form of sugar. And the more refined and complex the form of sugars is, the worst is the impact on our brain, because we become more addicted. So let's say it comes to every drug as well, because if certain, let's say, herbs have a certain impact, relaxing impact on our body, if they're chewed, or some tea is taken out of these leaves, like for example, coca leaves, which were used for centuries, for thousands of years in Latin America, if they give a nice effect, or like green tea, on our body. Now, if you take that substance and refine it many times, it becomes a very powerful drug, because it affects the blood and the liver and the brain right away. So now most of our foods are sugar-based, and most of this sugar is unrefined. Let's go to the more natural forms of sugar, like sugar cane juice, or molasses, or some kind of other type of sugar which is less refined. It is not as sweet even. So it doesn't have such a strong impact, although any sugar has negative impact on our body if it's more than a couple of teaspoonfuls per day. Even that is kind of a maximum dose to my mind. So what comes to spiritual awakening and Kundalini awakening, as a spiritual awakening, because many people misunderstand what Kundalini awakening is. They think it's some kind of an awakening of energy, but you cannot differentiate between your spiritual essence of self and the body. It's like you are one emanation of self on multidimensional level, like a rose which has a physical appearance but also has an aroma which you don't touch, you can't touch it, you don't see it, but you feel it and smell it. So the same thing is our human existence. We know at the moment we're more aware of our physical self, and we don't see how we are also having the other subtler forms. At least we're not aware of that. Now, spiritual awakening means to become more aware of the subtler self and try to integrate. The point of evolution is integration and autonomy and exit out of this reality. But what comes to food becomes one of the biggest bondages for us. And when you experience spiritual awakening, it means that you have to also understand how the food impacts your body. And sugar will be one of the biggest problems, together with probably caffeine or other addictive substances. Even superfoods. Sometimes people get so much used to such substances as guarana or ginseng or anything which is energizing, because they think that it will help them to have a better day, a more energetic day. Yet what they end up with is depleted nervous system, because if you continuously stimulate your nervous system, eventually the reserves of dopamine and some other substances in the brain, they deplete. So you no longer can experience the same energy level, that you expect. And so, but the body still craves for these substances. So we cannot just look at the hard drugs as of addictive nature, but we can look at so many other things, including movies, including watching YouTube, including other things which are of entertaining nature. So, but these addictions are more, or playing games especially, which is detrimental for children and grown-ups, but gambling. So these are the form of addictions for the mind. Now, the form of addiction for the mind is, the addiction of the mind can be cured easily with some willpower, some, let's say, discrimination, more conscious approach to life. But the physical addictions, let's say addiction to sugar, is probably one of the hardest addictions to cure. And sometimes people eliminate, as I said, all the ice cream, all the chocolate, all the candy, all the cookies, yet they keep on eating or increasing consumption of pasta, of breads, of fruit even. I mean, we can eat one fruit per day or a couple of fruit per day, but once you start indulging, all your healthy effort goes down the drain, because all you do is feeding the yeast inside the intestine or the negative microflora. So most of the people who are in this healthy movement are making a terrible mistake in the name of spirituality and their desire to look younger and healthier. In fact, what they're doing is that they are burning themselves. They're burning themselves because sugar is the energy. So the more sugar you give, the more you burn yourself, because you, at that moment when you're consuming a lot of juices, a lot of fructose and other forms of sugar, but not like refined sugar, not as bad, but let's say all these energy bars, protein bars, all kinds of smoothies and juices, which contain a lot of fruit, like let's say more than one orange or apple, you're already exceeding the dose of sugar per day of fructose, especially if it's just a juice. There's not so much fiber left anymore there. So when you eat just an apple or a raw orange with the pulp, you are having less risk for having problems in the body, because you're taking fiber, which is kind of helping to digest this sugar and kind of finds its way out of the body. But let's say if you have just like refined juices or some kind of fruit-based product, say you're a vegetarian and now you just feed on sugar, like yogurts, which are full of also fruit and sugars, artificial sugars, smoothies, and different kind of superfoods which contain also fructose or natural sugar. You are doing just the same. You're feeding yourself on sugar, getting more addicted. And now if you try to cut all your dry fruits, all your juices, all this kind of snack bars and other things, even if they contain nuts and seeds, there is a binding component. For example, some cornstarch or some kind of corn sugar syrup or some other type of sugar, new sugars now, plant-based sugars, which are not made of sugar cane but some other substances. So these kind of substances are equally dangerous, because after all, in your body it will metabolize as sugar, so it will feel the yeast infection or yeasts in general. So then you start having fatigue, you start having allergies, food sensitivities, all kinds of things, because of this one thing: consumption of sugar or products which turn into sugar in your body, like pastas and white breads, refined breads, starches like potato without skin, and so on. So even carrots, everything has to be consumed in moderation. Sometimes foods have to be consumed slightly cooked also. So it depends on the product, but after all, try to remove all the sugars, especially if you have received Shaktipat and you have your process of metabolic changes has started. It's crucial to remove all the sugars as soon as possible and to use the discrimination of the mind and consciousness to realize, why am I craving it? And go over it. There's another tip that I could give. Whenever you feel like craving something sweet or breads or anything, try to take instead proper food, like cooked vegetables or some vegetable stew or a soup at that time. Or try to eat some leaves, but don't take anything sweet. If you don't have any food cooked, you may use also some bitter herbs. Like, for example, just take, instead of giving yourself sweet, take a teaspoonful or half a teaspoonful of baking soda or neem powder or some other bitter herbs, which would immediately stop this craving. Because or after food, if you crave for desserts after food, after meals, wait for 20 minutes and have ginger lemon herbal tea or some kind of mint herbal tea or some other type of herbal tea. Even very good non-fermented green teas like matcha could help you in this case, but make sure you're not getting then addicted to matcha. In general, all addictive and craving personalities are based on inner discontentment. So in a way, I've noticed, and I'm sure that many doctors and also scientifically proven that there is some link between our microbiology or our microflora in the intestines and our mental patterns, because many times you see that people have cravings also when they have parasites, when they have very dirty colon, like they have yeast overgrowth or a lot of stored up toxins, a lot of coating on the intestinal walls and so on, which don't allow the proper absorption of vitamins into the bloodstream. So that's why there is a craving, because the body is not receiving what it has to receive and it tries to overcompensate with something else. So in this case, colonic cleanse, all kinds of liver cleanse are important. In yogic terms, we use yogic prakshalana, although I'm not sure that it has to be done on their own, because there has to be some kind of a supervision of how to do it and some precaution. Many times people demonstrate yogic prakshalana salt flushes on the internet, which are incomplete. They are not giving a complete idea of what yogic prakshalana is or should be about and how it's to be properly done. So it requires one-on-one teaching or some kind of guidance during the process. Now, even if you do all these things, it doesn't mean that you won't crave, because there is already a pattern in the mind. So your mind might send you thoughts from time to time, why not to take this or why not to take that. So in this case, you have to use the awakened awareness to actually discriminate and see, okay, I can't use this product because it negatively impacts my body. If you've used it again, you may start the cycle again. You have to take into account that in order to get rid of any addiction, you need to give it at least 16 days, because the blood changes every 14 days. So plus minus 1 day. So only in about 16 days, if you're staying without sugar, you become stronger, or without anything, you become stronger and you start kind of a new cycle. So natural probiotics also are important. So when you're doing cleanses, remember that you have to improve your microflora. So you have to use natural probiotics like sauerkraut, the sour cabbage, or some other type of natural probiotics, fermented foods in small doses, so that your body can kind of restart the function properly. And I would say that one of the best ways to get rid of any kind of addictions is colonic cleanse or prakshalana, yogic soul prakshalana, and also awareness. When you go with other people, don't go with their habits, because it's so easy to fall into this trap or fall prey to your friends' addictive behavior. They have it, you think, okay, well, one day, one time I do it again. And then the whole cycle starts again. It's very, it creeps in very silently, because you may do it just at first, like once a week or twice a week. And then it starts intensifying, because the more you do it, the more you feed the parasitic flora. So, and also sugar is one of the biggest problems for our bones and teeth. And for the spiritual evolution, our bones are important. So you may start feeling kind of negative impact on your skin, on your hair, if you overdo with sugar, because your consciousness will try to tell you that you shouldn't do it. So in a way, you might have a conflict within yourself. So you have to also discriminate, is it really coming from my consciousness, or it's coming from my mind, from my limited mind, which is just used to do a certain thing. So only when you awake to this realization, to this understanding of things, you can actually beat all the addictions. But it has to come from within. And I think also, in order to help other people around, you have to just increase their awareness. Because many times people know that they're addicted, but they don't know how detrimental it is for their body. And then they start having diseases and health issues and problems with their skin and so on. Yet they start looking for other solutions. They go and buy some expensive creams, or go to spas, or try to, go to doctors. But the problem is very simple. It's their food habits. So I think that also it goes the same for children. When you make your children aware of how harmful the sugar is and how they should avoid it by all means, and not only sugar, just as sugar or candy, but also soft drinks, which are even worse, because they contain so many poisons, so many coloring and so on, which toxifies liver. If our liver is very toxic, we are not able to think properly, we're not able to function, we start living like zombies. So the first step is to really become aware. The second step is to have a clear action plan of how to get rid of these things gradually, and how to stop this craving by, let's say, using bitter tastes, or using sour tastes, or having all these tips which I mentioned. Also, herbal teas are very useful. So instead of taking a candy, take a herbal tea. So this should help.